Chiefs Kingdom, welcome back to All Chiefed Up. We're back with another podcast for that ass. And today we're talking about Brett Veach. He speaks out on the Chris Jones situation. Steve, let's talk about it.
You guys need to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. 95% of you guys watching haven't done that, and we're trying to get to 20K subscribers before the end of the season. So help your boys out. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button to get this out to more Chiefs fans. Mike, let's talk about Chris Jones, baby.
Yep, Brett Veach come out today. He talked about Chris Jones. Mike Florio, everybody's favorite money-hungry little man, Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk. Brett Veach, Chiefs have no intention of trading Chris Jones. I'm just going to read a little bit of the article here. It said, I think for all parties, I think the best resolution would be for him to end his career as a Chief. That's good to know. And get that financial security, which is what Chris Jones wants, and for us to do what we had set out to do, and that's to work through the last offseason with this offseason in mind and get some young guys, which we did that, and then focus on this year and getting Chris done. Veach told this to Jesse Newell of the KC Star. Hopefully, we get this resolved, but we have no intentions of making a trade, Steve. That's what he said. They're not going to trade Chris Jones, but we've heard this before. Many franchises have said that, and then boom, they're gone.
This sounds exactly like what Brett Veach was saying about Tyreek Hill right before he got traded. So you can't be like 100% confident that things are going to get done still. You still have that like lurking in the back of your mind that you could wake up and see a Chris Jones trade tomorrow. Surely not, though. I do think Brett Veach has every intention of making Chris Jones be a lifetime Chief because it's in the Chiefs' best interest.
Yeah.
I mean, Brett Veach, it's his job, man, is to make sure he has the best product on the field and win Super Bowls. And I think he knows as well as we do, and you guys watching the podcast right now, that without Chris Jones, your chances of winning the Super Bowl this season go way down, and our defense just starts to tank a little bit. It would take forever to get it back to where you had it, and you've been working on building this defense up for years now.
Right. We've said it before. Last year, PFF graded our defense top 5. We were number 5 according to PFF.
Right.
I think we're better this year, but that all relies on Chris Jones. I don't think Chris Jones is going to sit for the year. I think that ruins his career. He knows better. But we've said this time and time again. I think this is a thing where Chris Jones just wants the Chiefs to show him a little bit of loyalty. They want to. He wants some security. Brett Veach even mentioned that, Steve. But he said we will not trade Chris Jones. At least that's not their intentions right now. He goes on to say this. He's a great player, and he wants a big contract. He deserves a big contract, and I don't think there's any surprises in that regard. But there's just some hurdles we have to work through in regards to how we can keep this thing going for the short term and long term, that being the Chiefs and all the contracts we have coming up.
Right.
But we've never wavered on, this is a guy that we want to exhaust all of our efforts to get done because that's how much we think of him. Steve, it sounds like Brett Veach values Chris Jones more than Chiefs Kingdom thinks Brett Veach values Chris Jones.
Right, but he's still leaving it open-ended, and that's the thing that you really have to think about here. I mean, Brett Veach, he's been a ghost since the beginning of training camp because people want to know about this Chris Jones situation, and he's just been absolutely gone. Like, this is the first time he's even opened his mouth about it in months. And what did he do? He played both sides of the fence. So we don't know any more than we did yesterday, to be quite honest about it. I do think that he's telling the truth, though. I think they have every intentions of making sure that Chris Jones gets his extension. He stays a Kansas City Chief. Because, like I said, it's just in the best interest of the Chiefs altogether. And I think Andy Reid and even Clark Hunt, they're all right there. They want to keep Chris Jones here and keep this train moving forward because why wouldn't you? I mean, you're in the middle of building a dynasty up here, and Chris Jones has been an integral part of that. You don't just let him walk.
Right. Chris Jones has to be part of this team, not just this year, but going forward. That's how we keep the dynasty moving. A lot of people say Chris Jones is washed already. He's 29 years old. He's washed.
Look, man, I'm just going to cut you off right here. If anyone thinks that Chris Jones is washed already or too old, you don't know anything about football or you're just being an old grump. Like one of the two, because that's ridiculous.
Time and time again, Steve, I've read in our comments, Chris Jones, his prime's over. It's over. I even seen today where somebody said Quinnen Williams is better because he's better right now in his prime and Chris Jones is leaving his prime.
What? Chris Jones is built like literally last year was his best year as a pro.
Right.
He built on the year before that and the year before that. I don't know how in the world you could say that he's going out of his prime when he's still at the top of his game. Now, when we see some decline in Chris Jones' game, then maybe you have that argument. But I don't think you're going to see that next year. Either way this goes, whether he gets extended or he just plays on the contract, he's going to go off next year. He's going to keep building on what he started.
Hey, the funny thing is, if Chris Jones declines, his numbers are so good, he's still at a higher performance than all these other guys. That's what's funny about it. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the article a little bit. It says, Veach pointed out last year's trade of Tyreek Hill came in part from the recognition that eventually the team would have to address Chris Jones's contract. We've kind of said this over and over again. They didn't want to pay Tyreek Hill. They didn't want to pay, because everybody's pushing it down the road. But we said, when does it end?
Right.
It sounds like Chris Jones has to be the ending point here. He says, when we did make that move with Tyreek, one of the determining factors was because there was an expected Chris Jones deal, says Veach. And so to do Tyreek, there was a concern of, would we be able to do Chris Jones? And so that was a moment of time, and it was before the draft that we hit the reset button. And we're like, it's really hard to trade a player the magnitude of Tyreek Hill, but we're following that up with someone just as significant on the defensive side. Steve, they know, Brett Veach, the entire organization knows how important Chris Jones is. It sounds like they want to lock him up. It sounds like they're trying to get it done. But Chiefs Kingdom's given up on this. They are just out here dogging Chris Jones. It's the most fair weather stuff.
They don't have any patience. That's what it is. You have to have a little patience with this kind of stuff, and the Chiefs fans have none right now. They just want it to be done and over with. And because it's not, that's why you see a lot of them turncoating on Chris Jones, because it's taken too long. Right? But, I mean, you can't rush greatness, Mike. And here's the thing about it. Brett Veach said himself, the reason why they got rid of Tyreek Hill is because they knew Chris Jones was coming up. Like, that was a big factor in that. Patrick Mahomes has said that he took less money because he wants the team built around him, that they need to go ahead and get Chris Jones signed. So that's another factor.
Right.
I think all signs point to Chris Jones gets his extension with Kansas City.
I think so, too.
I think so. I think it's going to happen. I don't think he plays this year on contract and then gets tagged. I think he gets this extension before we start this season.
The big misconception with Chiefs fans that I'm reading everywhere is that we don't need to pay Chris Jones because we have to pay Creed and we have to pay Nick Bolton. Creed and Nick Bolton are not top 10 players in the NFL, guys.
Well, I mean, even if you pay him, you're freeing up money for short term.
Right. That's what I try to explain.
That's what I can't figure out, because if they're worried about contracts next year,
right,
then they want to go ahead and get this extension done. Because if they don't get this extension done, Chris Jones plays this year on how much ever we owe him this year, and then they got to tag him for $32 million freaking dollars.
28. People are saying, look, let him play for 28 this year, and then next year we'll tag him for 32, and then we can trade him or get rid of him after that. Hello, that's $30 million average. You all said that was too much. And by the way, all of that goes to the cap at that point. I don't think people are using their brain, or they just don't understand the cap very well. I'm going to get back to the article. This is the last thing he says. Sometimes these things take some time. Steve, you just said that. Veach says, we'll continue to press away and work through that and hopefully make some movement here. We went into this, and as we're having these ongoing dialogues, our intent and desire has always been to get Chris Jones secured for the foreseeable future, and we're going to press on that mindset. It sounds to me like Brett Veach is saying all the right things. You said he's playing both sides of the fence. I'm not necessarily seeing that. I'm seeing that, hey, we want Chris Jones here. We want you here. You just got to play a little bit of ball with us. But we got rid of Tyreek Hill for you. Everything's for you. Don't be that crazy, but let's get this done. And I think that's what he's saying.
Well, what I meant by playing both sides of the fence is that he's still left it open. That it might get to something else, like he did. If you go back
Doesn't
to
he have to do that though? Because if you show your cards, the negotiation's done. Chris Jones is getting $40 million a year. If that's the case.
I mean, this all depends on Chris Jones anyway, right? I mean, if he'll take what Brett Veach can offer him, then they'll get it done. This is no different than back when we were talking about D-Hop coming to Kansas City. If they were able to offer him a certain amount of money, it was all up to D-Hop, right?
Right.
So they're going to offer Chris Jones what they can offer him. And he's either going to take it or he's not. That's kind of how it's going to be. And we know that Brett Veach is not a guy that will really bend a whole lot. Like he'll pretty much be stubborn and stick with whatever he originally offers him. But I think they'll come to an agreement, man. I'm with you. I think that they're showing more and more that they have every intention of getting this Chris Jones thing done and keeping him as a Chief. It would be stupid not to. I mean, honestly, out of all the moves that you could make, like we've talked about trading Tyreek Hill away. We've talked about going forward, not being able to pay L'Jarius Sneed or Willie Gay. Of all these different moves, the one that really screws you the most and the one that makes you look kind of stupid and would get the pitchforks out at you is the Chris Jones thing, because he's the guy that's a game changer. I'm sorry, I love L'Jarius Sneed, but he don't just freaking impact a game like Chris Jones does. He doesn't impact game plans like Chris Jones does. He doesn't, he doesn't break games. Like, Chris Jones will end a game in a heartbeat. We've seen it against the Bengals in the AFC Championship game. This is just a guy that you cannot play with, really. Like, you have to have him there if you want that X factor on defense.
Right, I agree. Andy was at the mic today on the presser. Andy did a presser at camp. Here he was, Big Red, looking suave out there. But they asked him about Chris Jones. And he says this. Jordan Foote reports, Andy Reid's updated message on Chris Jones. I don't know when he'll be here, but I'll tell you, any work he can get will help him. It's a pretty fast game. But the one thing I wanted to show was Tucker Franklin actually tweeted, and he said the tone that Andy delivered this was just sad. So in other words, Andy delivered this in a tone where it didn't give a lot of confidence to Chiefs Kingdom. They felt like Andy's kind of losing a little hope or something. I don't know what it is. Like, maybe it's the frustration coming through. Maybe, who knows what it is, but everybody took that in a weird way today. And I don't think it's something that we should read into too much.
Knowing Andy Reid, it was probably a question he didn't really want to be asked.
Probably.
Because if you notice when they ask him questions that he doesn't really want to answer, he does kind of give that sort of a vibe, right? Like, whatever. But I don't know, man. I wouldn't put too much stock into that, because I think Andy tries to stay out of those conversations. I think he probably knew that Brett Veach was going to address this, right? I mean, this came right before Brett Veach actually addressed the media about Chris Jones. So I'm sure Andy Reid knew that was coming. I'm sure Andy Reid kind of knows what's going on with the contract negotiations, if not all of it. So I'm not too worried about it, man. I really do think Chris Jones will get an extension before this season gets started. That's just where I'm at with it.
Right. Well, the NFL released their top, 10, top 100 players, but they got through 10. Look who was number 10, man. Chris Jones.
Right.
The number 10 player in all of the NFL.
If he didn't need anything else to help him in contract negotiations, it's that his peers think he is the 10th best player in the entire NFL out of all positions.
Right. And, of course, we had Travis Kelce at number 5, and we had the GOAT, Patrick Mahomes, at number 1. Steve, for the first time since this list has been made, 3 players from the same team made the top 10.
This goes exactly along with what we've been saying since the beginning of this Chris Jones contract extension talk, that there are 4 cogs in the Chiefs' wheel here.
Right.
You got Chris Jones, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Andy Reid.
Yeah.
People want to leave Chris Jones out and act like Chris Jones is tradable and he's expendable and we can get rid of him.
He's not.
No, he is one of those core guys. He is one of the pillars of this dynasty. And this shows you that. This shows you his value. Everyone in the league, his peers, everybody else, they see it. We see it, Mike. I don't know how anyone could think that trading off Chris Jones for some draft picks would be a great idea. That's just silly.
It's silly because you're not getting nothing in the draft that's worth Chris Jones. You're just not doing it.
So you mean to tell me you think if we got 2 first-round draft picks from Chris Jones and maybe something else with it, do you really think that you're going to hit a player that's going to be a top 10 player in the entire freaking league, counting all positions? You'd be lucky to get a top 10 defensive tackle with one of those.
Well, they're not going to be 30 years old. That's the argument we get.
He's only got 5 more years to play, man.
Yeah. We need somebody who can play for 20 more. When did 30 become so ancient? I feel so old. Not to be outdone, NFL Network, LaDainian Tomlinson's top 10 players of 2023. LaDainian Tomlinson says he's the number 8 player in all of football. He's got him 2 spots above Travis Kelce. Do you think LaDainian Tomlinson thinks the Chiefs should trade him? I don't think so.
Probably not. I mean, like I said, man, Chris Jones is the X factor on that defense. He is the reason the defense was able to win another Super Bowl.
Right.
Like, end of story. Like, without Chris Jones, you do not have a defense that's going to compete for a Super Bowl. It would be hard to do, man.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that defensive line, man, here we go. Chris Jones isn't there. Nick Roche come out today and tweeted, the first team defensive line today during drills at camp was Carl Loftus, Derek Nottie, Turk Wharton, and Charles Omenihu. He said that Felix Anudike-Uzomah worked with the second team and that he is probably going to be the next man up during Omenihu's suspension. I then thought that Andy come out and had a telling statement today at his presser. With Charles Omenahue's suspension, Andy Reid said he believes right now that the Chiefs have enough quality defensive ends for the start of the regular season. Steve, they're not looking to add no more. I don't know if they're in talks. People keep asking me, are they in talks with Carlos Dunlap? Look, I have no idea. I don't think anybody knows, but I think Carlos Dunlap will come back if he wants to. Otherwise, I'm not putting anything on it. It sounds like to me that they haven't given up on Malik Herring. They haven't given up on Kando. They expect B.J. Thompson to contribute, and they expect Felix Anudike-Uzomah to contribute. And they're just going to go ahead and go with a youth movement here, too, the same way they did with the wide receiver room. That's the way I'm taking it.
Well, at this point, can you really doubt them when they make a decision like that? Because a lot of people last year, they're like, dude, we're throwing these like late round draft pick cornerbacks to the dogs.
Right.
Like we're literally just throwing them in the fire. And guess what? We won a Super Bowl, and those guys stepped up to the plate.
And
do you do the same thing with this group? Just be like, hey, guys, it's you. It's you now.
Right.
You don't have Carlos Dunlap. You don't have Melvin Ingram. You don't have Terrell Suggs. You don't have Frank Clark. You don't have all those guys to do this for you. It is on you now. Step up, get it done. Do you think it works for the defensive ends?
It's a great opportunity for guys like B.J. Thompson, even Felix, being a number one. Come out and prove yourself. A lot of Chiefs Kingdom thinks you were a backup plan. I've seen that a bunch. They think he was. Come out and prove yourself. Prove everyone wrong. I think Felix is going to be fine. I think B.J. Thompson has a good shot at making this team. Look, I don't think they've given up on Herring and Kando either. They're getting a lot of first-team reps.
And it shows you they trust people like Mike Dana as well.
Right.
Because, I mean, we know that Dana, when he's healthy, he's always contributed.
Yeah.
But you've never really seen him get over that hump. I think if he can stay healthy for a full season, this could be the year that you see that.
That's where I kind of disagree with Nick Roche here. I believe that Felix won't be the first one up. I believe in Omenahue's place it will be probably Mike Dana. Now, I could be wrong. They may go ahead and go with the young guy. And just
I think they'll rotate them out. No matter
right.
who starts, I think they're going to get equal amount of snaps. It'd be
I do too.
My opinion.
But going back to your point, when it comes to the corners, look, the corner may be the hardest to translate from college to NFL.
Yeah.
And they figured it out. The Fab Five looked good. I think it's a little easier for the defensive ends to do it. So why can't they? You know, why not? Why not? Last little thing before we head out today, Steve. It looks like, speaking of youth movement, Nick Jacobs reports the Chiefs have reached an injury settlement with rookie linebacker Isaiah Moore. He was waived today from IR. So they reached the settlement with him. It looks like Isaiah Moore is not going to, play any football this year.
He's not going to be a Chief.
Kind of sad, though. I thought Nick, you know me, I was saying Isaiah Moore was a dark horse to make this team. I thought he had all the talent in the world to do it.
Right.
Now, I feel like I'm leaning more towards probably – I don't think I'm leaning towards Cam Jones. I think I'm going to go ahead and stick with the
Jack Cochran,
the one that got left co-cocked there. I think I'm going to stick with Cochran. But I will say this. I don't think this is the last time we will have seen Isaiah Moore in a Chief uniform. I think when he gets healthy, I think he'll come back.
You think so?
Yeah, I think he'll be back with the Chiefs. I really do.
That'd be good to see, man. Because it does suck. Because this is kind of like the Najee Johnson thing. Like Najee had worked his way up to where he could maybe get some starting reps as a cornerback, and still do his special teams contributing. And then the knee injury happened. He's out all season, right?
Yeah.
Well, this isn't to that magnitude, but it kind of is, because I thought this guy could make the squad.
Yeah.
And now it's a complete setback. But man, overall, the youth movement, it is what it is. This is what the Chiefs have been going with. This is the way that you build a dynasty, honestly, is to keep getting younger and better. And that's what we're doing. So I think you just kind of have to trust. I know everybody says, in Veach we trust all the time. Sometimes, yeah, you can get away with that. And the reason why is because he hasn't failed us yet. So, I mean, we can speculate on everything, but at the end of the day, Mike, whatever Veach decides to do and whatever Andy Reid decides to do as far as what product they put on this field, I think we have to roll with it and we have to trust it a little bit, because these guys have yet to let us down. And I'm pretty excited to see how this team rolls out. But I'm guessing that Chris Jones gets that extension done. And I'm also going to go ahead and say right now that if Felix gets a lot of snaps in those first 6 games, I think Felix could hit 8 to 10 sacks this year.
Yeah. If Felix automatically with Omenahue's suspension, again, I think he's going to get that probably negotiated down to 4 games if I had to guess. But that's going to open up a lot of extra snaps for Felix, and I think his floor now becomes possibly 6 sacks on the year. I was saying
right.
4.
Well, I mean, George Karlaftis had 6 last year in his rookie season. Some people say 7. If you look at the stats, it'll either say 6 or 7.
Right.
Either way, Felix Anudike-Uzomah has much more potential than George Karlaftis did, honestly, because George Karlaftis was kind of a one-trick pony. He's going to bull rush. Felix, he's got an arsenal of moves, and he's more athletic than George. And I think that he could possibly hit that 6, 7, 8, even if you want to go crazy high with it, we could put his ceiling at 10 sacks. He could maybe hit the double digits. So I'm excited to see it, man.
Right. I think he's going to have a good year. I think the whole defense, the whole youth movement is going to be fun to watch this year in Kansas City.
That's going to wrap it up for today. Make sure to catch our live stream later today, giving you updates from camp. And thanks for subscribing and hitting that bell. We'll see you next time, Chiefs Kingdom. Aside from my soul.